And what is keeping buyer activity in that stagnant range? It's not home prices so much as it is. How's it going, guys? My name is Christopher McGee. I'm the owner of Halcyon Real Estate. We are affiliated with the Keller Williams Market Center in Salt Lake City, Utah. Today is the 7th of July, 2025. This is the numbers, the nuances, where you come weekly in order to know exactly what Utah's housing market is looking like right now. And in this video, we're gonna be looking back at quarter two. I'm gonna wrap up the second quarter, April, May, and June 2025, and we'll see what we can learn about Utah's housing market by looking at that recent quarter's data. Let's check it out. Our inventory has cranked up. We're at the highest level of inventory that we've had in about a decade here in Utah. And that's very, very good news. We have a lot of pent up demand here in Utah. Our housing market's popular here, and so if we get as low as like 6% interest rates, the amount of buyer activity that would ensue would create a big enough bite out of the inventory that we have that we would expect that to create a similar issue of housing shortage that the rest of the nation is still dealing with a little bit, and that we dealt with prior to 2022's interest rate rise. So whenever that happens, whenever our interest rates come down significantly to about 6% or lower, if our inventory isn't high enough, then we can expect to see the typical housing shortage issue of rising home prices before Utah is ready for those prices to rise. So we like to see our housing supply cranked up. Average list price has stagnated. It hasn't trended up. That's good, but it really hasn't trended down either. It does look like it's trending down if you look at the chart of housing prices in Utah from the beginning of the year to present, but most of that downward trend really happened in the first quarter, and in the second quarter, housing prices on average really stagnated. Didn't go up or down, and so what does that tell us about buyer activity? It tells us that we are right at the line where if buyer activity goes up, then we would expect average home prices to start to come up because we're taking that bite out of inventory and sellers see that there's that much more increased activity and desire for buying homes. If buyer activity were to start trending down, then homes would stay on the market longer and we would see bigger price reductions of the homes that are on market, and we would see average home prices trending down. But it's our stagnant level of buyer activity, which is not bad. It's like on the order of 500 to 600 homes sold every week in Utah still, but it's that amount of buyer activity that is keeping our average home price pretty stagnant right now. And that makes sense if you look at the drop, the very moderate drop in average home price that we had in quarter one this year. That was correlated with fewer buyers, and as more buyers came out in the spring, as we would expect, then that stopped the downward trend of home prices, but it's not enough to take home prices trending back up. So home prices have been about stagnant, not really trending up or down. And what is keeping buyer activity in that stagnant range? It's not home prices so much as it is those interest rates really staying high. They have also stagnated really throughout the entirety of 2025, let alone the second quarter. We had a high point of 7.05% in quarter two and a low point of 6.65-ish% in quarter two. And it never tanked from 7.05 to 6.65. It was just really slow, moderate movements down or up, never made a big enough movement in one direction or the other, never made a consistent trended movement in one direction or the other for us to see a corresponding movement in the market in terms of buyer activity or in terms of home prices. Okay, so if you're a prospective home buyer right now, it's because of one or two things. Either you hate renting enough and you're making enough money, probably between two of you, that you're kind of pinching your nose, holding your nose, and making the dive into buying a home. And if you're going to live in that home that you buy for the next 5 to 10 years, that will almost certainly pay off. Or you're just making bank and you've saved up a lot of money, or both, and the money's just not a problem for you. Maybe you've got a lot of money from the sale of a home that you held on to for decades, so you had a lot of equity in that, and now you can use that to make your next home purchase one way or the other. Congratulations. And if you're a prospective seller right now, then hopefully you understand after the last 3 years of rising interest rates, rising inventory, and stagnating home prices that now is not the time to put your house on the market for $50K over what your neighbor sold for last year if they had a comparable home. The market isn't doing that right now. And that's a good thing for our market overall. But if you've lived in your house since prior to 2020, you're still making a killing on the sale of your home. Congratulations, and you'll probably appreciate having that in the purchase of your next home. Let's look at these numbers for quarter two. Here's where things are in the Utah housing market as of July 7th, 2025. Our current inventory stands at 13,373. That's down from last week actually, but still strongly trending up. The prior week's average days on market came to 57, just 1 day difference down from the previous week. Last week, Utah's average list price came to $702,854. That is up from the previous week. Looking like average list stayed pretty stagnant throughout the second quarter, like I said. Now, last week's average sold price came to $691,700. And so, as always, there's a difference between average list and average sold price. Again, coming this last week in the buyer's favor, the difference between those two numbers being $11,154 in favor of the buyer. Also important to know, last week, median sold price came to $519,000, up just a touch, $4,000 from the previous couple of weeks at $515, but it's important to know that there's an average list and sold price, and then there's a median list and sold price. And the median, where more people are having an experience in home buying, that is 150 to 200K lower than what is average. Last week, there were 681 homes sold in Utah. That's down just a little bit from the previous week, but still trending up. Currently in Utah, we have 5,258 homes under contract. That's down again from the last week. This data set definitely peaked in late May at about 5,700 homes under contract at a given time, and it has retracted back down from that high. The prior week's number of price reductions for homes that were on the market came to 1,213. That's down pretty sharply from the previous 2 weeks. We still see a pretty strong trend up there, however. Last week, the number of listing contracts that were either canceled, expired, or withdrawn came to 518. That's up from the previous week. We expect it to tick up at the beginning of every month, showing a slight trend up here that likely correlates with the increased number of listings on the market in general. And finally, interest rates for a 30-year fixed rate conventional loan right now stand at about 6.79%. That's up from last Monday. Still not really a mobile data set, largely as it has been all year. And that is it for this week, guys. Thanks as always for watching. If you have any questions about where I get the data, how I present it, why I present it the way I do, hit me in the comments. I'm going to be happy to respond. If you or anybody you know is looking to move, if you need to sell or buy a home in the coming months here in Utah, I hope you're comfortable reaching out to me. I'm going to be happy to hear from you. I want to make sure that you always know what's happening next. You always know what you're signing. We get your sale or purchase of a home as buttoned up as it can be. I want this process to be as anxiety-free as possible for you. And finally, if you're somebody who wants to keep track of the data like this, if you want to understand Utah's housing market, you will find no better way than to hit that subscribe, keep up on it with me from week to week. Thanks for watching this week, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.